everyone, and welcome back to the One Stop Co-op Shop. This is Colin, and today we are going to start a playthrough of Aeon's End, the Outcast expansion. Now, this game comes with a 4-part campaign that I'm not going to play here because I don't want to spoil the story, because it actually has a story with it, which looks really cool. But I want you to be able to explore that on your own. Instead, I'm going to make my own expedition here, which would be 4 different nemeses that we go against, and we slowly level up, as well as the nemeses also level up. Now, although I plan not to spoil the story, I am going to be playing the nemeses that come in this box, which you slowly open up in envelopes as you're playing the campaign, so do know that. And I do want to mention that something that you would open up after your first scenario, I'm actually going to play with in this one. And so if you don't want to see that, stop watching now. Okay, I have warned you, there is a little bit of spoilery. I will tell you that these cards in the marketplace are the starting ones that you would start with when you play your game, and this is your first nemesis, so I don't feel like that's spoiling anything. But Gravehold is going to be a little bit different this time, and that's what's spoiled. So without further ado, let's go ahead and look at how you do your own expedition, and you can use any of your Aeon's End content for this, but for mine here specifically, I'm only using the Outcast box. What you'll need to do is separate the treasure cards into 3 separate stacks. You're supposed to randomly choose your cards, but like I said, I don't want to spoil too much right away, so I'm using the set of cards that you would play with your first time that you play Aeon's End Outcast if you're doing the campaign. Then we have Shuffle the Mages and randomly draw 4 of them. I have done that. I'll show you those 4. They're all going to be from the Outcast box. Then we have Divide the Nemesis randomizers and randomize the nemesis that you're going to use, but I'm going to use the 4 that come within the campaign. Set the upgraded basic nemesis cards aside. And then finally, we need to decide whether you want to play with Zaxos Outcast instead of Gravehold. And I am going to play with Zaxos. Now, I will admit I have never played with him, so we're going to see how it works. I like the idea. I'm just not sure it's going to be used much, but we'll see. Well then, looking at the 4 mages that we have randomly drawn, we get to choose which ones we want to use each time we play. We'll construct our supply of 9 cards, which at the beginning will just be our straight 9. And then all of these other items would be, hey, if we are doing our second game, we might get treasure cards, but we're not there yet. We're only in our first game. The 4 characters that I randomly chose were Zana, Tarquin, Lucian, and Karna. Now, the 2 that I'm going to use for this first playthrough, because they are mother and son, so that just sounds awesome, are Zahana and Takrin. But in future rounds that we play this game, we could choose Lucian and Zahana, or we could choose Karna and Zahana. It's kind of cool. You can use their abilities to try and determine which ones do I want to use while taking on this specific nemesis. You need to remember to read the back of the mage player boards, because they all have special abilities back here. So Zahana, and I should say it explains their special abilities. We have set all the glyph tokens next to this map. We have all of our glyph tokens here. When an ally gains a card with a glyph token on it, that ally or Zahana resolves that token's effect. Then that token is returned to Zahana. When Zahana gains a card with a glyph token on it, place that glyph token on any card in the supply, unless you are playing with 1 mage. We're playing with 2, so we'll be fine. When a card with 1 or more glyph tokens is removed from the supply, return those glyph tokens to Zahana. Zahana has a special ability called Inscribe. Activate during any player's main phase. Gravehold gains 5 life. Place 2 glyph tokens on top of any card in the supply. Now that's going to cost her 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 charges, and it costs 2 Aether per charge to fill this up. She will be considered player number 1. Not that it really matters in this game, it's just because in your turn order deck, you will be drawing from them, and if you draw the number 1, she'll get to go. All mages will start with 10 health, so I'll place this here. And then you can see up here her breaches. She actually has no level 1 breach. She'll have a level 2, level 3, and level 4, and you set them up based on how it looks on here. So, for example, this is our level 2 breach, and we need to have the arrow pointing this way, so it's going to cost 5 ether to open, or 2 ether to focus. We've set up our breaches, we're ready to go. The final thing is we need to set up our starting hand and our starting deck. So our starting hand will be 4 crystals and 1 glyph carver, and then our starting deck will be 3 crystals, 1 glyph carver, and 1 spark. And they always are in order from left to right. So for our deck, we'll have 3 crystals on top, followed by a glyph carver, and then a spark. Takrin is definitely an interesting mage. On the left side of the front of his mat, there is a barrier track. Place the barrier token on 1 ally draws a card. When Takrin suffers damage or is exhausted and would suffer damage, move the barrier token to a different space on the barrier track and resolve the listed effect. When Tok'ra is exhausted, Gravehold suffers 1 damage per 1 damage Tok'ra would suffer instead of 2. So Tok'ra is going to kind of do the tanking. He's going to take damage, and even if he goes all the way down to 0, normally if he would take damage, he would do double that amount of damage to Gravehold. It's a 1-for-1 when he's playing. We'll place the barrier token here, and now every time he takes damage, we can actually move it to a different spot and activate that ability. Super cool. He also has Sustain. If you're not exhausted, gain 3 life, and you can do this during only his main phase. Otherwise, Gravehold gains 3 life. That's going to cost 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 ether or 5 charges. His starting hand is 3 crystals, 1 exoteric amplifier, 1 spark, and then his deck is 3 crystals and 2 sparks. He'll be player number 2, and he'll also come in at 10 health. And you can see his breaches are set up as follows. He has an open breach, so I have that upside down. He does have a level 1 breach already open, so he can cast spells directly from there. And these other ones he can focus or spend the cost on top to flip open and open them. Next, we have setting up Gravehold, but for us, that's going to be Zaxos the Outcast. And I'll let you read the story to understand why we're now defending him, if you know from any of the other stories that may not have always been the case. Our setup here is Zaxos starts the game with 30 life, just like Gravehold. So we've got our 30 health here. You lose the game if Zaxos Outcast has 0 life. Any effects that would refer to Gravehold instead would apply to him. Shuffle all of his ability cards, and I did get a couple extra as promos because of kickstarting the game, so you might not have as many as I do, but there's a bunch of them. I've shuffled them out, we're ready to go. Our rules here is when a player would gain 1 or more charges, they may have Zaxos Outcast gain those charges instead. Zaxos Outcast cannot have more than 8 charges at a time. When Zaxos Outcast has 8 charges, completely resolve the effect that gained him that charge, and then what you'll do is you'll activate his ability. First, Zaxos will lose all of his charges, then draw an ability card from Zaxos' ability deck and resolve its effect. If ever his ability deck is empty, just shuffle it and restart using it. Effects that are triggered when a player resolves their ability are also triggered when Zaxos Outcast resolves his ability. Zaxos Outcast is not considered a player for any other purpose. As you can see here, we need tons of charges to activate him. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 total charges. So yeah, I'm not sure how much I'm going to use it, but it's still a cool idea. It gives us something other than Gravehold being a number. Let's now set up our first nemesis. This is Experiment 153. Place the growth mat next to this mat. You'll see that in a second. Place the 4 Ma tokens on the 4 starting spaces. Move 2 different Ma tokens 1 space forward. And then Experiment 153 does not use the nemesis life dial. Instead, give each Ma 20 life. We have our 4 Ma tokens. Our health is 20 for each one, 20, 20, 20, 20. And we need to move each one, or 2 different ones, up 1 space. Now, each time they hit one of these spots that's a red box, we have to activate that ability. So I think I'm going to do this one up 1 and this one up 1 for any player suffering a damage, and this one that potentially would cause Gravehold to suffer damage. There we go. I want to keep this one down. And you can see there's arrows up and down. I'll show you what those mean in a second. Whenever we draw a Nemesis card that says Unleash, we have move any Ma token 2 spaces forward toward the end of its track. And here's our additional rules. When you move a Ma token forward onto a space with an effect, resolve that effect. If a Ma token starts to move forward any number of spaces while it's at the end of its track, instead resolve the effect of the space that it's currently on. When a player would deal damage to Experiment 153, that player deals all that damage to a single Ma instead. When a player deals 3 or more damage with 1 instance to a Ma, move that Ma token back 1 space. When a Ma token is on the 1st or 4th space of its track, it cannot be moved back. When a Ma is reduced to 0 life, discard that token and move another token back 2 spaces. Oh, cool. The players win when the growth mat has no Ma tokens on it. Just so you understand, once we get a Ma token to here, we are not going to ever be able to move it back from this spot. And if ever it's all the way up here and we have to activate it, it's just going to do this ability. Okay? And I should say activate whenever it gets an unleash and we need to move this one, it's just going to activate this. We can push them back, and if we push them back onto a space with text, doesn't matter. It only matters if it moves onto the space with text that'll actually do it, and that's moving forward. Okay, this guy was at the start. Yeah, both of these two had started moving up. Each Nemesis will come with 3 level 1 cards, 3 level 2 cards, and 3 level 3 Nemesis cards. You then will also take basic Nemesis cards equal to whatever player count that you're playing with and shuffle those together respectively. Since we'll be playing a 2-player game, I will shuffle 3 regular Nemesis cards with the 3 specific experiment level 1 cards together. Then I'll do the 5 basic with the 3 from experiment level 2, and then we have 7 tier 3 followed by 3 of the experiment 153 cards. And remember, one of the ways we can win is actually decking this Nemesis deck. Highly doubt that's going to happen here. Some Nemesis will use curse cards, and this is new from the Outcast specific box. So I have my curse cards, I have them from 1 to 10, just sitting here face up. Whenever we need to gain one, we need to gain one from here and put it on top of our deck, or however it states we need to gain it. It might be to our discard pile, might be to our hand, might be to our top of our deck. I'm not sure. I haven't played this experiment. We'll see how it goes. Next, we're going to set up our turn order deck. We'll have 2 number 1 cards, 2 number 2 cards, and 2 Nemesis cards for the experiment 153. I am going to shuffle these, and that's going to determine whose turn it is each round. Finally, we have our marketplace. So we have 3 gems here. I'm not going to read each one to you. You can pause it and read it for yourself, but they have a 3, 4, and a 6 cost. We have 2 relics, a 4 and a 5 cost. We have one of our spells, which is only a 2 cost. That's actually pretty cheap. And then finally, we have our 4, 5, and 6 cost spells up here. So we have a total of 9 cards to choose from. Remember that spells and relics each only have 5 cards in their stack. If they're gone, they're gone. There are 7 for the gems. Gems will generally give you money, relics will do random assortment of things, and spells will generally deal damage. And with that, I think we are ready to begin. Look at this. Doesn't this look, this Nemesis with the Nemesis mat attaching to the actual board itself looks so cool. These huge ears on this rabbit, scary. Okay, first thing we do is we get to see whose turn it is. So we draw this over. Player 1 will be Zahana. Players have a total of 3 phases. They have a casting phase, a main phase, and a draw phase. Our casting phase would be if we would want to cast any of the spells that are on our breaches. If we have a breach that's only been focused and hasn't been opened and has a spell on it, we have to cast those. We don't have to cast any other spell unless we want to. When we cast that spell, we do the effect and then we put it into our discard pile. So how we cast them, or the order, matters. Then our main phase, we'll go ahead and play cards, we'll gain cards, we could potentially activate spells if we have those abilities, but we'll most likely be just setting spells out onto our breaches or focusing breaches. And then at the end of that turn, we will discard cards. Oh, and I should state, if we gain a card, that goes into our discard pile first before we discard any of the cards we play during that turn. Then at the end of our turn, we draw our cards back up to 5. If ever our deck is empty, we'll just go ahead and grab our discard pile, flip it straight over, we don't shuffle, and continue drawing, which is part of the fun of this game. That means how we discard our cards matters. Here we have Zahana's hand. Now she has 4 crystals, those are all basic cards, they just gain you 1 ether, and then she has a glyph carver. I do also want to mention that you don't have to play all the cards in your hand, but when you draw at the end of your turn, you only draw up to 5 cards. So it may be beneficial to keep cards in hand, but not always. Also, you can't just discard a card. You can for crystals. I could play all my crystals, and if I don't use it all, it'll also go to our discard pile, but I can't take a spell and just put it in our discard pile. I have to either put it in on a breach that's open or that's been focused, or all I get to do is keep it in my hand. So that's something to note. So I'm going to generate 1, 2, 3, 4 plus 1, 5 ether to purchase something. I can, and I should mention, I could gain 5 ether here, or I could gain 4 ether and then do this OR effect. Place 1 glyph token on the top of any card in the supply. I'm definitely going to do that. I'm going to place this glyph token that says gain a card that costs 3 ether or less from any pile. That's awesome. I'm then going to use our 4 crystals here to take our level 4 breach. It only cost me 4 ether to open that. Boom, it's open. We can now put spells here. And what's awesome is our level 4 breach has an ability that we get +1 damage on cast. So whatever spell we cast from here, it'll do +1 damage. Sweet. Let's go ahead and place this glyph here on the Petrified Phoenixium. We're hoping that Takrin can go ahead and purchase this next round, and then one of us can also gain a 3 ether costing card for free from one of the supply piles, like maybe this one. We've done everything that we can for this turn, so I'm going to go ahead and discard all of these cards. Now I'm going to discard them in a specific order. I want this glyph carver on as soon as possible back. So I'm going to place it on the bottom of my stack because remember, when my deck runs out, I'll just flip over my discard pile and that will be on top of my deck, followed by 4 crystals. I'll then go ahead and take my deck. I only have 5 cards left since I've just started, and I will draw these 5. And now I have a Spark, I have another Glyph Carver, and some more crystals. So far, no damage, but that's pretty typical in Aeon's End. We'll go ahead and draw our next turn order card, and now it's Takrin that will go next. First, we look at doing the casting phase, but we have no spells prepped to any of our breaches, so I'm not going to worry about that. So instead, we'll look at our hand. We've got 3 crystals and 1 esoteric amplifier. That means we have 1, 2, 3, 4 total ether. We also have 1 spark. But if you read this card, it says you may suffer 1 damage. It seems kind of silly, but remember, he can use his abilities when he suffers damage. So I actually think I'm going to do this. We'll take that 1 point of damage, but then we can activate one of our 3 abilities here. We could either gain 1 charge, prep a spell in hand to one of your opened or closed breaches, but that's kind of silly because we can do that anyways during our main phase. And then we have focus your closed breach with the lowest focus cost, and we're definitely going to do that. Looking here, this breach has the lowest focus cost of only 2. This one costs 3 and that one costs 4. Remember, you can open one of these breaches just by paying the top amount here of 3, or I can focus it for 2. That would turn it once here, but then I'd still have to pay the 2 ether to open it next time. However, I can just focus this for free because we used our ability, and now I can spend 2 ether to open that up if I want it. I'm also going to go ahead and prep this simple spark right here into our open breach of level 1. That means next time when we activate, we go into that casting phase, we can cast this spark and deal 1 damage. We have 4 ether remaining, so we're going to go ahead and purchase this petrified Phoenixium. That will gain us 2 ether, and then the next time you gain a card this turn, you may cast any player's prepped spell. It's kind of awesome. And there's a glyph here, so that means that we can have either Zahana or Tarquin to gain a card from the supply pile that costs 3 or less ether. We're definitely going to have Zahana gain the Molten Peridot. This one has gained 2 ether. If this is the second time you have played Molten Peridot this turn, you may destroy this. If you do, gain a card that costs 4 or less from the supply pile. Kind of cool because they can level themselves up. And this Petrified Phoenixium will go to Tarquin's discard pile as his first card in his discard pile. We'll then remove this glyph and put it next to Zahana's player mat, and she can use that again the next time she can put a glyph out. That'll end Takrin's turn. He then will discard the cards that he played, starting with that Esoteric Amplifier and then the 3 crystals that he has here. And then he'll draw all 5 of his remaining cards from his deck, 3 crystals and 2 sparks. Takrin has finished his turn. Let's go ahead and move to the next player's turn, and it'll be Takrin again. Takrin has 1 spell that he has currently casted, and it's a Spark. It can deal 1 damage. It's from a regular opened breach, so it doesn't get any additional damage. It'll just deal 1 damage. We'll go ahead and cast this. This will then get placed into our discard pile, and we can choose which maw we want to hit for damage. Let's go ahead and hit this one over here to the left. So we'll tick this down to a 9. It has 19 health now instead of 20. For our 3 crystals, we're actually going to focus this closed breach. So we'll focus it, and we'll get to turn it 90 degrees to here. Now it's only going to cost 5 to open instead of 7. And when you do that, you can immediately prep 1 spell into that location. Now, next time he takes a turn, he has to cast that spell. He can't wait to cast it till the next round or whatnot like he could with this one, that he'll just prep at his level 1 breach. This does mean, though, his next turn he could potentially deal 2 points of damage. We'll then take our 3 crystals, put them here in our discard pile. We then need to draw, so all we'll do is we'll take our discard pile, flip it over to become our deck. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Draw these 5. Let's see what we have. Lots of crystals, our Esoteric Amplifier, but then we also have our Petrified Phoenixium. Well, it's felt good that we have continued to go, but you know that there's 2 Nemesis cards in here, and yeah, here's our first one. Our Nemesis turn has a main phase, a draw phase, and then a when exhausted. So in main phase, we would move from oldest to newest, resolve the effects of each minion and power card that the Nemesis has in play. We don't have any. Then we have our draw phase. Draw the card from the top of the Nemesis deck. If it's an attack, we resolve it. If it's a minion or power card, we place it into play. Any immediate effects are resolved. And then if ever one of our mages becomes exhausted, this is what happens. He'll unleash twice, destroy one of your breaches, and discard all your charge tokens, then deal excess damage times 2 to Gravehold. Currently, during the Nemesis's main phase, we have no cards in play, so we'll just move to the draw phase and draw our top card. This is what we call a power card, and it has a power level 2. That power level 2 means the next 2 times that the Nemesis goes, we're going to remove one of these tokens because we've placed 2 tokens on here. When there's no tokens left on this card, we have to activate the ability. And this says move the Ma token farthest from the start 2 spaces forward. If this causes an effect to resolve on the track, resolve that effect 1 additional time. Well, that's terrible. Now we can, during any player's main phase, spend 5 ether to discard this card so we don't have this effect happen. I'm going to set this card here, and any additional cards like minions or other powers I'll put to the right of this, and then if we have not gotten rid of this, when the experiment 153 goes again, we will start with this card, followed by the next card, and so on. The nice part about this game is those turns are quick. Let's go ahead and draw our next turn order card. Yeah, it's the Nemesis again. That means we'll remove one of these power tokens. It still has 1, so it won't go off yet. And then we'll draw our next card, and we have an attack. Any player gains 2 cursed shards from the curse deck and places them on top of their deck, or move 1 Ma token 3 spaces forward. Ugh. So any player gains 2 cursed shards? I think at the beginning it's going to be more beneficial to take these cursed shards than pushing a Ma token 3 spaces up. So I'm going to have Zahana go ahead and take both of these. And that means, let's see, it says on top of their deck. So these are going to go on top of her deck. This card then gets discarded since it's just an attack card. That will end the Nemesis's turn. Let's go ahead and draw our last one, and we know this will be Zahana. Zahana has no spells to cast, so we'll move right into the main phase. We're simply going to prep this Spark to her level 4 Breach. And remember, it'll actually deal 2 damage when she casts that next turn instead of only 1, because that Breach gives her +1 damage. Then she either can have 3 crystals and then place a glyph token, or 4 crystals. I have to decide what I want to do. I think we're just going to use 3 of the crystals, and we're going to buy another copy of the Molten Peridot. Because we have one directly in our discard pile on top of the deck, that means we'll place another one there, and they'll be right next to each other, which means we could potentially use their ability, which would be nice. Knowing what Tarquin can do, we're going to place this glyph then here that allows either myself or Tarquin to focus one of their breaches to go ahead and place this on the Tornado of Insight. We'll end our turn. We definitely want to have the glyph closest to where we're going to draw, so we'll place that first, followed by all of our crystals. Where they're going to have to draw, but 2 of them are going to be those curses, and then 3, 4, 5. We have these 3, so 2 more crystals and another glyph carver. We've ended Zahana's turn. Now what we need to do is shuffle up the turn order deck and then draw a new one. We're set to go. Let's go ahead and reveal, and we have player 1, so that will be Zahana will go again. First thing we get to do is cast this Spark, but we'll deal 2 damage instead of 1 because we're casting it from our level 4 Breach. And then this will be placed in our discard pile. I have no idea if this is a good strategy, but I'm just going to hammer at 1 until it's gone and go that way. So we'll knock this down to 17. Now, as much as this stinks, what we're thinking of doing is spending 1, 2, 3 as a crystal, 4 and 5 to go ahead and discard this Cascading Casualties. I don't want to deal with this. However, these 2 curse cards, they say gain 1 and then place this on top of your deck, or you can spend 2 ether and destroy it. Well, since I used it to get rid of that Cascading Casualty, I'm going to have to put both of these on top of our deck, and we're going to have to deal with them again next turn. We are, though, going to take these 3, we'll flip them like so, so we have the Glyph Carrier first and the 2 crystals into our discard pile. I'm never sure when it's worth actually doing that for those powers versus just taking the hit, but I thought moving it up and activating it twice wasn't good. Yeah, see, this is the problem. I have no spells in any of these, and I've now split my Molten Peridot because my next Molten card is right here. Bummer. Let's go ahead and flip the next turn order card, and we have number 2. That will be Takrin. During the casting phase, Takrin has 2 sparks. He'll go ahead and activate both. Neither of them are in areas where they get +1 damage, so we're just going to knock this down to a 5. We're down to 15. We've dealt 5 damage, you guys, so far. Woohoo! Takrin has a total of 3 crystals, plus the Petrified Phoenixium and the Esoteric Amplifier. So that's 3, 4, 5, 6 total ether. That's awesome. Now, the next time you gain a card this turn, you may cast any player's prep spell when no one has any prep spells. And this one we can deal ourselves a damage, and I think I'm going to do that. We're going to deal a point of damage to ourselves, knocking ourselves down to 8, but that means we can move this over here to let Zahana draw a card, and she's going to draw her other Molten Peridot, which is great. So remember, it was a bummer that they were separated. That's why I felt like we should do that. Takrin is going to go ahead and purchase the Tornado of Insight since he has 6 ether. We can cast this and deal 5 damage. If you have no closed breaches, gain 1 charge. That's kind of awesome. The other thing is, now since he's doing that and this glyph is here, we can either have Zahana or Takrin be able to focus the closed breach with the lowest cost, and I think I'm going to do Takrin. Why I'm doing Takrin is this one has a 2 ether to open, but no focus cost. This one has the focus cost, so we get to focus it over here, and that means now it's only going to cost 3 to open, and this one deals +1 damage. Why the heck not? Okay, then we're going to discard our cards because at the end of our turn, we'll do the Petrified Phoenixium first, and then followed by the Esoteric Amplifier and the 3 crystals. Then we'll go ahead and draw 5 cards. We have 4 here, so we've got a Spark and 3 crystals, and then we'll take this, and we should be getting another Spark, I believe, for our 5th card. Yes. After Takrin, it's going to be the Nemesis. Okay, so we have no cards out. So that's all we're going to do is have to draw this card. Great. And we have a minion. Now it has a persistent effect. What that means is every time now the Nemesis activates, it's going to do whatever it states here. But the first time you draw it, the persistent effect does not take place. So this Corrupting Chitterer has move Maw tokens on 2 different tracks 1 space forward. Oh, that's gross. And it has a total of 6 health. I've placed him over here. You can kind of see him. That's going to end the Nemesis's turn. Let's go ahead and reveal this. We've got Zahana to go next. We knew we weren't going to have a great turn with Zahana because of these wonderful cursed shards. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to spend these 2 crystals to go ahead and destroy this one. Then I'm going to go ahead and play this one Molten Peridot to destroy this one. Both of those will go back into the curse deck. That means we still have 2 ether that we can use, and then we can, if we want, if this is the second time you've played Molten Peridot this turn, which it is, you may destroy this. If you do, gain a card that costs 4 or less from the supply pile. And I think I'm going to do that. I'll destroy this one, and let's gain a card that costs 4 or less. This spell is great because it deals 3 damage, which is just what we need to be able to push Maw tokens back. And once this entire stack is empty, it'll deal 1 additional damage, which is cool. So she'll go ahead and grab this Twisted Fang, putting it in our discard pile. We have 2 ether remaining, so let's go ahead and charge up our ability a little bit. We'll spend 2 to gain a charge. And remember, we could instead spend that 2 to gain a charge on Zaxos, but I do like having Gravehold gaining life. Let's then go ahead and discard our only 3 cards now that we have left. We'll put them here. We'll draw, we've got 4 here in our deck. We've got glyphs and a lot of more crystals. And then what are we going to draw? We'll draw this Spark from the bottom here for our 5th, and the remaining of this becomes our deck. So far we have not been dealing a lot of damage, but I do hope that will change soon. Oh, we have our Nemesis activation next. So this Corrupting Critter will activate now. It says move Maw tokens on 2 different tracks 1 space forward. These Maw tracks just totally stink. Let's go ahead and do the 2 that we haven't moved up already. Yeah, let's do that. Now we still have to draw a card. And we get, let's see, another minion, a Wandering Lasher. Wandering. Reduce to 1 all damage that is dealt to this by abilities and player cards. During any player's main phase, that player may spend any amount of ether to deal an equal amount of damage to this. Interesting. And then its persistent is to unleash, which we know with Experiment 153, that's move any Maw token 2 spaces forward toward the end of its track. This will also come in with 6 points of health. That'll end Experiment 153's turn. We should know who's next. It's Takrin. He's got a pretty simple turn. He's got 3 crystals in his hand and 2 sparks. So we want to place 1 spark here. We're going to spend the 3 to pop this one open. And this one does +1 damage on cast, so that will deal 2 points of damage. So his next turn, he'll be able to deal 3 points of damage. He'll then go ahead and discard these crystals. And let's go ahead and draw 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 new cards. And let's see, we've got our Esoteric, our Petrified, we've got our 5 damage one, and a General Spark. I've shuffled up our turn order deck, and you know, I've got to say, minions are just brutal because we can leave them, but they just keep making the game harder. But then we're taking 12 points of damage that we could be doing to Maw tokens to the minions instead. But what can you do? Okay, Takrin is going to go first, so maybe we can do some damage to those minions. During the casting phase, we can send off one of those sparks, and remember it deals +1 damage because it's on breach 3, and we'll move this one down to 4. Now we could do that 2 points of damage to either one, but we'd have to deal the full 2 points of damage from that spark to one or the other. We couldn't split them. And then I have that regular open breach for 1 point of damage, and I think because we're limiting all the amount of damage to the Wandering Lasher to 1, let's go ahead and do him, so he'll go down to 5. And then we can use Ether to hurt him, which is pretty cool. Looking at our hand this turn, we're going to use our Esoteric Amplifier, gaining 1 Ether, but also we're going to suffer 1 damage. And then we're going to go ahead and cast, or I should say prep, both of these 2 spells. Dealing that 1 point of damage will push us down to a 7. And let's go ahead and move back to here to focus one of our breaches. The only one that we have a focus cost is this one, so let's go ahead and turn it like so. This one can also give us +1 damage. Then I'm going to place my spark here to get +1 damage, and our Tornado of Insight will go over here. Now the reason I'm doing that is because now with these 3 cards I have a total of 1, 2, 3, 4 total Ether. But the next time you gain a card from this turn, you may cast any player's prepped spell. I could cast this card for 5 damage. And with that 4 Ether, I'm definitely going to grab another Twisted Fang. Once again, if I can get rid of this stack, so I need to buy 3 more of these, they're all going to deal 4 damage instead of 3. I'll then go ahead and cast my Tornado of Insight. Now, I'd love to deal the 5 damage to this Wandering Lasher, but based on how I read this, I'd only deal 1 point of damage. So instead, I'm going to deal that 5 to this Corrupting Shitterer. Yeah, I'm overkilling it by 1, but at least I'm getting rid of it. We still have Closed Breaches, so I don't get to gain the 1 charge, and then this will be placed in our discard pile. We'll go ahead and discard the 3 cards we have remaining in our hand, making sure the crystal's on top. Let's go ahead and draw our 5 cards. We've got 2 here, 2 basic crystals. Yeah, I need something to start destroying some cards. 3, 4, 5. Here's the other 3 more crystals. We have just 5 crystals in hand. That's terrible. Still, overall, destroying a minion with 6 health, I'm not going to complain. Oh yeah, we got player number 1, that's Zahana. Zahana has a total of 3 crystals, a Glyph Carver, and a Spark. She will go ahead and prep the Spark because she had nothing prepped, so she couldn't do anything during the casting phase. Remember, that's also at her level 4 breach, so that'll deal 2 damage instead of 1. And then I think I'm just going to use all 4 of that to deal 4 damage out of the 5 to this Wandering Lasher. So he'll only have 1 health left. Hopefully, we'll be able to activate 1 more time before the Nemesis goes, so we don't have to deal with the Unleash. We'll then simply place the Glyph Carver first in the discard pile, followed by our 3 crystals, and we'll draw 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 total cards. Yes, we have our Twisted Fang and a couple more crystals. Let's see who goes next. We have, oh yeah, Zahana's going to go next. Zahana will just go ahead and cast that Spark. It does deal +1 damage, but who cares? This reduces it by 1, but it does kill it. Beautiful. We didn't have to deal with that. We then have a total of 2 plus 2, which is 4 Ether. I think I'm going to put a Glyph out because I think I can do something with the 4 Ether. And then we are going to prep the Twisted Fang into our level 4 breach. You know we have to go for the Twisted Fang. That means there's only 2 of those left, and we're going to place this glyph onto the Transmute Lens. We'll discard cards with the Molten first, followed by the Glyph Carvers and the 2 crystals. Then we'll draw. There's 2 in our deck. We've got 2 basic crystals, followed by 1, 2, 3. These 3, 2 more crystals, and another glyph. You know this Experiment 153 is saying, you've had your fun. Now, oh no, we're going to have Tarquin go next, but then we're going to have 2 Nemesis turns back to back. We've got our basic Spark here, but it's on a +1 damage on cast, so it'll deal 2 damage to a Maw token. It's down to a total of 13 health, which is great, but man, so much to go. With Tarquin's 5 basic gems, we're going to go ahead and get this Transmute Lens. Destroy this. You may destroy a card in your hand or discard pile. Gain a card that costs up to 6 from any supply pile. Beautiful. Put that into our discard pile, followed by the 5 here. We also, because we used picked one that had a glyph, we can have either Zahana or Tarquin gain a card that costs 3 or less from any supply pile, and we're definitely going to grab the Molten Peridot. Oh, you know what? 3 or less. Yeah, we need more money, I think. The Molten Peridot will go into Zahana's discard pile. We really need to start destroying cards. So those 5 crystals are on top of that relic that we bought. We will draw 5 cards. And yeah, we've got 4 spells. Yeah, this is the problem. We only have 2 open breaches. Well, we know what's going to happen. We're just going to flip the next 2. They're both 2 Nemesis cards. So let's go ahead and activate the Nemesis twice. First time, we'll just flip our top card, and we have a power card. It's a power 2. Unleash. Gravehold suffers 2 damage. Any player gains a Cursed Bolt from the Cursed deck. Ooh. Okay, so we'll place this here. It's going to get 2 power tokens, but I'm actually only going to place 1 on it because the Nemesis is going to go again. We've already removed 1 of the tokens from here because that's what we should have done. And we will draw an attack. Unleash. Gravehold suffers 1 damage. Place this in front of the player with the most open breaches. We'll do the card in order. First, it's Unleash. Move any Maw token 2 spaces forward to the end of its track. Let's go ahead and do the one that we're trying to destroy. So this one's going to move up 2 spaces. Then Gravehold will suffer 1 damage, or aka Zaxos will. So we'll move down to 29 total health for Zaxos. Tokrin is the one that has 2 open breaches, so we have to place this in front of him. At the start of that player's turn, they suffer 1 damage. So he's going to suffer 1 damage. When that player gains a card that costs 5 or more, this card is discarded. So we have to buy another card that costs 5 or more. All things considered, that wasn't the worst possible thing to happen when you have the Nemesis activate twice. Let's go ahead and shuffle all of these turn order cards. But now the question is, we could draw 2 more Nemesis cards. So he could go 4 times in a row. Let's see if that happens. We'll flip our first card, and yes, we have our Nemesis going. That means that power is going to unleash. We'll remove this final power token, and it states here, Unleash. Gravehold suffers 2 damage. Any player gains a Cursed Bolt from the Cursed deck. So we have the Cursed Bolt here. Now, I believe it just says gains, so it doesn't say that you have to put this into your hand. So I'm going to go ahead and give this to Tokrin. He's got the most open breaches. I'll put that in his discard pile. But let's go ahead and activate this in the appropriate order. First things first, we have to move a Maw token 2 spaces up due to the Unleash. And Gravehold will go down to 27 total health, or I should say Zaxos. That means this Haunted Force can get discarded, but we're not done yet. We still have to reveal another card, and we have a Wandering Observer. This is Wandering. We know what this is. We can either spend our Ether to get rid of it, or just deal 1 damage no matter what we're doing. And its persistent is Gravehold suffers 2 damage. Oof. I do want to mention that Wandering Observer has 11 health, and it had a number 2 on the bottom right corner. That means we're on to the tier 2 Nemesis cards. They're going to be a little bit harder, but that kind of shows you where you're at. Okay, we have Zahana going next. We'll start by activating our Twisted Fang. This is going to deal 4 damage because it's on our level 4 breach. And then unfortunately that supply pile is not empty, so we'll just take this. We're definitely going to go for the Maw tokens because of that Wandering Observer. We'd only do 1 point of damage. So we're going to put this one from 13 down to 9. That means we can push it back 1 space on its track. Heck yeah. We have a total of 4 crystals here. I think I'm going to go ahead and grab that Twisted Fang again. And then we're going to use this card, our Glyph Carver, to go ahead and place this Focusing Breach one. And I think, which one do I want to put it on? We know Tokrin needs to buy a card that costs 5 or more as soon as possible. So let's go ahead and put this on the Lightning Arrow. I'm taking a little bit of a chance here because I still only have 1 breach open and I have all of these basics. I really should be getting a card that lets me destroy cards, but I want those Twisted Fate cards to do better. And you know, I'm taking the chance. Yeah, see, I have 2 here, but hopefully next round I'll be able to open one of my breaches. We'll draw our next turn order card and we have the Nemesis. So that Wandering Observer is going to deal 2 damage to Zaxos to start with, so he's down to 25 health. Remember, if this ever gets to 0, we lose the game. After activating the 1 minion, let's draw our next card, and we have an attack. Unleash twice. Any player suffers 2 damage and discards 2 cards in hand. That player gains a Cursed Manacles from the curse deck and places it into their hand. Oh. Unleash twice, huh? Well, we have to move one of these up 2 spaces, so that means Gravehold's going to suffer 2 damage, and any player suffers 2 damage. And then let's go ahead and do this one, and that one is now any player suffers 4 damage. So we have 1 player suffering 4 damage and 1 suffering 2 damage, and then Gravehold I can do right here. It's going to suffer 2 damage down to 23. The 2 damage, let's do Tokrin for sure. He'll go down to 5 from 7 health. That means he can move this and have an ally draw a card. That means Zahana will draw another basic crystal. And then the 4 damage, I don't want to do him because that hemorrhage would actually then make him exhausted. That means Zahana will go down to 6 health from 10. Ouch. Then we still have to deal with the attack. Any player suffers 2 damage and discards 2 cards from hand. So we're definitely going to do Tokrin. He'll go down to 3, but that means he can move this, and I think I think we're going to move to prep a spell in hand to one of your open breaches, and we're going to prep this Tornado of Insight, and we'll prep it to here, so that can deal 6 damage, which is awesome. But then we still have to discard 2 cards. We'll go ahead and discard our 2 sparks that we have here. And then we have to gain a Cursed Manacles card. It's terrible. Gain 1 charge and suffer 1 damage, or discard 2 prep spells to destroy this. Okay, I'm just going to say this now. I really like the curse cards. A nice addition to the game, I think. That was the end of the Nemesis turn. Hopefully I didn't miss anything. We have player number 2. Takran can go next. We have to remember he has the Hemorrhage here. So at the start of his turn, he's going to take 1 damage. He'll go down to 2 health. He will be able to do this, though, and that will allow Zahana to draw another card, which is another crystal. But the nice thing is she's got, what, 7 cards in her hand now? That's awesome. And now we can deal 6 damage with this. I was going to do the one that has 9 points left, but you know, I actually have some space here. I think instead I'm going to do this third one here. 6 points of damage means it's down to 14, and we can push this one back 1 space. With the 3 cards that we have here, I think the first thing we're going to do is just use our Petrified Phenoxenium to gain 1 charge here. We're also going to put the Twisted Fang out on our +1 damage on cast, our level 3 breach. And remember, we don't have to play every card, so I'm just going to keep this card in my hand, which is terrible, but then that way I don't activate it. So I've discarded the 1 card that we played. I'll draw these 2. We've got a Crystal and our Esoteric Amplifier. That's for a total of 3 cards, and then we'll gain 2 more from our discard pile. Oh yes, we have a Transmuter Lens and a regular Spark. We'll draw our next card from here. We've got number 1, so that's Zahana. Zahana has 3 crystals. She has a Glyph Carver, a Twisted Fang. She also has the Molten Peridot and a General Spark. So the Twisted Fang, we know we're going to prep that to our Open Breach level 4. And then I think with these 5, we're going to go ahead and open up one of our breaches. And then, of course, let's place a glyph out as well. With 5, we can open this breach directly. It's just a regular breach. That means we can place our spark here and prep it. Now let's see where we want to place this glyph. Let's place the gain 1 charge glyph over here by the Destiny Forger. This will help us potentially, if we ever buy it, will help us reduce the amount of cards in our deck. We'll discard our cards with the Molten first, our Glyph Carver second, and the 3 crystals at the end. We'll then draw 5 cards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And yeah, we've got 2 more Twisted Fangs, Molten Peridot. Yeah. Once we get those Twisted Fangs to 4 damage, it's going to be pretty awesome. We only have 1 card left, and we know that's going to be Takran, player number 2. First things first, at the start of his turn, he's still hemorrhaging. He's going to go down to 1 health. But he will move this to here to gain 1 charge. Remember, if he can fill this up, he needs 6 more ether. He could actually activate this and heal himself by 3. After taking that 1 point of damage, let's go ahead and activate our Twisted Fang. This will deal a total of 4 points of damage. Let's go ahead and deal 4 points of damage to this one. It's 3 or more, so we can push that down. It's now down to 16 total health. Here's our hand for this turn. We're going to activate our Transmuter Lens. Destroy this. You may destroy a card in your hand or discard pile and gain a card that costs up to 6 or fewer from the supply pile. We're going to gain this Tornado of Insight. Put that in our discard pile, and we're going to destroy both of these cards. It's also going to get rid of this hemorrhaging as well. So this is gained, though, so will be put into our discard pile on top of our Twisted Fang. We'll prep this spark and spend both of these to help us charge up our ability. We are not going to suffer a damage that would make us go exhausted. This does mean we only need 2 more charges to be able to then gain 3 life. Now we'll go ahead and take both of these, set them in our discard pile, and we'll draw 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And let's see, we just have a ton of terrible crystals. I've shuffled up our turn order deck. Let's see what we get. We get a number 1. Zahana can deal 4 plus 1, a total of 5 damage, 4 in one instance and a 1 in a second instance. The 4, let's go ahead and do this one. It'll go down to 12 health, and the advantage of that is now if he unleashes, he can move this up 2 and not have an issue. The 1 damage, let's just hit this one. And you guys might be noticing I'm ignoring that Wandering Observer. I mean, I've got 23 health on Zaxos. I'll take the 2 points of damage. Instead, I think I want to focus on this. Here's my hand. Let's go ahead and prep both of these Twisted Fangs. Beautiful. One's going to be doing 4 damage, one's going to be doing 3. But then we have 2, 3, 4 total money. Let's get that last Twisted Fang. That means each one of these is going to deal an additional point of damage going forward. We'll go ahead and put these into our discard pile. I didn't get to put out another one of the glyphs, but that's okay with me. We'll draw our 5. Yeah, we got lots of gems. Here we go. Our next turn will be Tokrin. Tokrin just has 1 spark in his level 3 breach, so it deals 2 points of damage. When it's less than 3, I'll just keep going on this guy, and eventually he'll be gone. So he's down to 6 health. His turn's going to be quite boring. He has 5 gems. We're going to use 4 out of the 5 to gain 2 more charges. And then, during his main phase, he can discard all these. If he's not exhausted, he'll gain 3 life. So he'll go up to 4. But that means all 5 of these, and yes, I only used 4 of them, but remember, I can play all the gems that I have in my hand, and if I don't use them, I just discard them. There's nothing that costs 1 gem, so I'll just discard all 5, and my turn. I have nothing prepped, but it is what it is. Here's our 5. Yeah, here we go. We've got 4, including this stupid cursed bolt. Let's see what we get for our next turn. We have Tokrin going again. We have no spells prepped, so it's just our hand. Let's go ahead and use our Petrified Phoenixium. We have our level 2 breach, only costs 2 to open. So let's go ahead and open that. That is going to allow us to prep 3 spells. All 3 of these, we're going to leave this Cursed Bolt into our hand. We'll place our Tornado of Insight here and our 2 single sparks here. This will stay in our hand. This Petrified Phoenixium will go into our discard pile. We'll then take our deck, flip it over, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're going to draw 5 more cards. Oh, another Tornado of Insight. A Twisted Fang, which will deal 4 damage. Yeah, this is looking fun. Oh, wait. I've got to put this one face down. We can only get to draw 4 because we had this one in hand. So 4 cards. We'll move to that next turn. Come on, don't be a Nemesis. Oh, it's a player 1. Well, I almost want it to be the Nemesis because now 2... Wait, how many cards do I have left in here? Oh, only 2. That means we have 2 Nemesis turns after this. Be that as it may, we can deal 3 plus 1, which is 4, because the supply pile is empty, plus 1, which is 5. 5 damage for this one, and 4 damage for this one. Let's have each one hit this Maw token, so it gets moved twice. 5 plus 4 is 9, so it has only a total of 11 health. Yeah, I'm seeing the advantage of keeping some of these out. This is actually working pretty well. Our hand is a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 ether, or I could put out another glyph. I don't really want to. I think I want the 6 ether. With 6 ether, it's hard not to get the Tornado of Insight. We'll then discard our cards. Molten first, Carver second, 3 gems. Let's draw 3 basic crystals. Ow. And then our final 2, a Spark and a Twisted Fang. Well, we know what's happening next. 2 Nemesis turns in a row. First, Zaxos will take 2 points of damage, going down to 21 because of our Wandering Observer. Then we will draw our top card here, and this is a move any Maw token 4 spaces forward. Really? 4 spaces? I guess we'll do this one. 1, 2, 3, 4. That means Zaxos will take another 4 points of damage. He's down to 17. I need to start thinking about using Zahana's ability. Okay, then we're going to do the second activation. Gravehold will take, or Zaxos will take 2 more points of damage. He's down to 15. That was from that Wandering Observer that we have been ignoring. And we get another minion. Reduced to 0 all damage dealt to Maws. That's a persistent. Any player suffers 2 damage. So this, while this is out, we can't deal any damage to Maws, and we have to deal 10 damage to get rid of this. It's always fun doing 2 Nemesis turns in a row. Okay, number 2, that is Tokrin, gets to go next. Tokrin will start by casting his Tornado of Insight. That was on a +1 damage breach, so it's going to deal 6 damage. He still has a closed breach, so he doesn't gain the charge. That will push this down to a 4. And then he's got 2 more sparks. Let's go ahead and just use the 2 generic sparks to knock this down to a 2. Looking at our hand then, let's go ahead and cast all 3 of these. And I'm going to take the chance, and I'm going to use our Esoteric Amplifier to suffer 1 damage, but also with our 2 total crystal ether here, we'll gain 1 charge. Our Tornado will go here for 6. We'll have the Twisted Fang here, and we'll have the Cursed Bolt over here, which we'll have to deal with. The 1 point of damage will knock us down to 3, but then we can allow Zahana to draw a card, and she gets another Twisted Fang. That's kind of fun. And then with our 2 ether, we'll go ahead and power this up a little bit. We'll then discard our cards, and let's draw 5 more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And pretty sure it's going to be a bad hand. Yeah, 4 crystals and a spark. Let's see who goes next, and we've got Tokrin going next again. Unfortunately, we're going to have to use our Twisted Fang to deal 4 damage to this blasted guy. Kill him, though. That means we can finally hit the Ma tokens. I have just the right amount of damage here with our Tornado of Insight to deal a total of 6 damage, because that's on our +1 damage to cast. So let's go ahead and take out this Ma token that has 6 health. So it's gone. We only need to deal 3 more. Then I'm going to use my Cursed Bolt here. It's going to deal 1 damage. I'll deal the 1 damage to this Ma because it doesn't really matter. It's at 10. We don't get to reduce any because it's not 3 points of damage. But we have to discard 2 cards in hand. If we do that, we can destroy this. I definitely want to do that. I'm going to destroy that. I'll discard 2 crystals in our hand. With the hand that we have left, we'll just place this spark here at the +1 damage on cast. And with the 2 crystals that we have here, we will generate another charge, just so that way we can potentially heal ourselves. We'll then place just these 2 in our discard pile. Let's go ahead and draw. We've got 2 cards here, the Petrified Phoenixinum and a regular crystal. And then we've got 3 more from here, and we've got 2 sparks and another tornado. We know Tokrin is out for the rest of the round. Let's see, we have our Nemesis activating. So first thing, that Wandering Observer will go down to 13 health for Zaxos, and then let's draw our card. Don't be terrible, don't be terrible. Unleash twice. Place this card in front of any player. For the rest of the game, when a player Nemesis card specifies any player, the player with this card must resolve the effect if possible. When the player with this card becomes exhausted, discard this. We're definitely going to put that on Tokrin. Unleash twice, though. Dang. Actually, not dang. 1, 2, and 1, 2. We're okay. And then, like I said, we're going to put this in front of Tokrin. That wasn't as bad as I was thinking. Our next one, we do have Zahana going. Zahana has 3 crystals, 2 Twisted Fangs, and a spark. We're just going to spend those 3 crystals to focus our level 3 breach here. So it's going to move 1 more over, and we can immediately prep a spell there. Let's go ahead and prep our spark. And then on our other 2, we'll place the 2 Twisted Fangs. And that's all that we're going to do. So we're going to discard these 3 cards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Draw 5. 2 Twisted Fangs, another gem, some more Molten Peridot. We'll draw our next turn order card, and it's going to be the Nemesis. That Wandering Observer. 2 more damage to Zaxos. I mean, maybe I should have tried to get rid of him, but at this point, it's a lost cause. Let's see, we have a power. Power level 3. There's nothing we can do to stop this. Unleash twice. Set this card next to the growth mat. For the rest of the game, players must deal 4 damage instead of 3 to move a Ma token back. So we generally are either dealing 2 damage or 4 damage, so I'm really okay with that. And then we know Zahan is going to go last. We have 1 Twisted Fang that's dealing 3, plus 1, which is 4, plus 1 because it's from our level 4 breach for 5. We're going to tick this one down to 5 total health and push it back by 1. Then we'll use our other Twisted Fang. This is on our level 2 breach, so it'll only deal a total of 4 points of damage. Put that in the discard pile. That'll go to a 1. Push this back. And then we have our Spark that deals 1 point of damage. Perfect. Took out our second Ma token. We have to deal a total of 26 more damage, and we can defeat this Nemesis. We have 2 more Twisted Fangs in our hand. We'll prep 1 to our level 4 and 1 to our level 2. Then we have 1, 2, 3, 4 total Aether. I think I'm going to start charging up our ability. The reason for doing this is because we know Gravehold has been taking tons of damage. And this will let us have Gravehold or Zaxos gain 5 life. Then we'll go ahead and discard with, oh, you know what? I'm going to put the Molten actually on top so I can finally get those 2 Molten cards together. So I'll put that one on top. Let's go ahead and draw 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And where's our Molten? There's our other Molten. Great. And we have a Tornado of Insight. We've shuffled our turn order deck. Let's see, we have Zahana going again. We have 2 more Twisted Fangs. One's going to deal 3 plus 1 plus 1, so a total of 5. And the other one is going to deal a total of 4 damage. Let's do both to this one, so we're going to push it 2 back. 5 plus 4 is a total of 9, so we'll go from 12 down to 3. And right now, I'm feeling pretty good. Hopefully, we can keep this going. Looking at our hand, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 total Ether we could use, and this Tornado we're definitely going to prep to our level 4 breach. Although we have a total of 5 ether, I'm going to use 4 so we can go ahead and use our ability. Activate during any player's main phase, which is ours right now. Gravehold gains 5 life. Then we're going to place 2 glyph tokens on top of any card supply. And we're going to place the same 2 glyph tokens. You may cast one of your prepped spells because it can help us win faster. So we'll remove all of these. And then I'm just going to show you now. We're putting the Molten first in the discard pile, followed by the Glyph Carver, and then the 2 crystals right here. At this point, we're just looking for damage, 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 so I'll place both of these on the Tornado of Insight. Zahana has discarded her cards. She'll draw 1, which is a wonderful crystal, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have another Twisted Fang and 3 more crystals. Well, it's been all Zahana so far. Let's see who goes next, our Nemesis. I almost forgot to show you, Zaxos gained 5 health, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and now he's going to lose 2 because of the Wandering Observer, down to 14. We're also going to remove 1 of the power tokens from that, what is that called, the Scaled Flesh. Now, 2 more of those, and then that ability will activate. Let's draw our card, and we have another power. When a power token is removed from this, Gravehold suffers 2 damage. You have to spend 7 ether to get rid of this, otherwise, after 3 turns of doing that, it's then going to unleash on top of it. The Toxic Subterfuge. That's really kind of cool. Well, we certainly did not make these decks as Aether generators, so we probably are just going to have to deal with that one. Okay, Tokrin is going to go next. He has 1 spark in his level 3 area that will deal +1 damage, so he's going to deal 2 damage to this one. Man, it goes down to 1. Still can't take it out. But 15 more points of damage, you guys, and we can win this game. Looking at his hand, he'll go ahead and prep all 3 of these. This one will go to his +1 damage, so it can deal 6. We'll place these 2 out on his level 1 and level 2 breach. We can gain a total of 3 ether. Oh, and we could prep a spell. I think we want to do that. Let's go ahead and gain something that's cost 3 ether. Let's actually just use 2 and get this Fortified Frost, because we can deal 2 damage, and we can even discard a card to deal additional damage. So that costs us 2, and since we did that, let's go ahead and send off this individual spark. It'll deal 1 damage. That means we can take out Ma token number 4 here. We only have 1 more Ma token. We'll place these 2 cards into our discard pile, and let's go ahead and draw 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's see what we have. Another Tornado, another Twisted Fang. Yeah, as long as nothing terrible happens, I think we have this one in the bag. Let's go ahead and draw our next turn order card, number 2, that's Tokrin. We have a Tornado of Insight and a General Spark. The Tornado was in our +1 breach, so that's a total of 7 damage. 7 to the 14, they have 7 health left. I unfortunately can't push this back any farther though because of where it's at. And you guys, I should have looked at this. The highest up one is any player suffers 6 damage. That would kill either one of us. So if he gets up there and has to activate that twice, we'd actually lose the game. So I'm being a little bit risky. I maybe should have left the other Ma token that I could have used. Oh well. Let's see if we can do this. Here's our hand for this turn. We have 3 ether and 2 spells. The Tornado of Insight will deal 6 damage, and if we get to go again, we will have the Twisted Fang, which will kill this Ma token. 3 ether, let's go ahead and power up our ability, and we're going to suffer the damage for this ability. With taking 1 point of damage, we'll go down to 2, but then we can move this here to gain 1 charge, and then we'll spend that 3 ether to gain another one. We're 1 away from powering ourselves up to gain 3 more health. And it's not that great, but we might as well. Use those 3, discard them. We'll draw these 3 crystals, and let's see what our last 2 cards would be. We have the Fortified Frost and a Spark. We've got 2 cards left. That means Tokrin is going to have to go. That means as long as the Nemesis, which is now, as long as the Nemesis doesn't kill us, we should be able to win the game here. First thing, Gravehold's going to suffer 2 damage. We're going to remove this, and then we're going to remove 1 of these. That means Gravehold is going to suffer 4 damage. It's going to go from 14 down to 10. Then we're going to draw our top card here, and we have Chitin Crawler. Reduced to 1 all damage dealt to this minion by spells that cost 3 or less. Persistent. Any player suffers 3 damage or it unleashes. Oof. As obnoxious as that guy sounds, I think we're going to be okay. Oh no, I forgot. Tokrin already had gone twice. So it's going to be Zahana. So that means, yeah, Zahana can't take out that Ma token. She can, though, deal 6 points of damage, because this was in her +1 damage for the Tornado of Insight. So it'll go down to 1 health. We'll then simply prep our Twisted Fang. And since we have 4 total crystals, let's go ahead and charge up Zaxos a little bit. I totally forgot about Zaxos. I maybe could have done this more, but I feel like the team has been synergizing pretty well, so I'm not that worried. And at this point, if either of us get to go next, we win the game. We'll then go ahead and draw our 5 cards, and we have lots of awesome stuff. Really, we just need to be able to send off our Twisted Fang. Well, it's all down to this shuffle. Let's go ahead and see how we do. And, okay, hopefully we get to go first. Beautiful. We will have Zahana go and deal the final blow. We'll take that Twisted Fang and kill that final Maw. If you win, we need to do the following. Find treasure. Add treasure cards to the barracks based on the following instructions. At the end of Battle 1, add 5 random Level 1 treasure cards from the Level 1 treasure deck to your barracks. Then, add to your barracks, draw a card from each of the 3-player card randomizer decks and add the corresponding player cards to your barracks. Here we have our 5 treasure cards. Now, what they will do is if it's a treasure card that's a gem, it'll replace a regular crystal, and if it's a spell, it'll replace the regular spark. Each time now that we play, we can choose one of these 5 to put in our deck if we'd like. Also, our 3 randomizers we have are these 3. We can choose to replace any of the ones in our marketplace with any of these ones that we have here. And each time, I think we'll place more cards there so we can swap in and out and make our own marketplace. I'm really liking this quickening quit. We gain 2 and you may discard a card if you do focus player's 2 breach. Nice. And this energized conduit. Attach this to any player's breach. When a spell is cast from this breach, the player who casts that spell gains 1 charge. Cool. And our paired storm, it's a link. It can deal 2 damage, and if this is the second time you have cast a paired storm this turn, deal 2 additional damage. Yeah, I think all 3 of those are awesome. Overall, I had loads of fun. I love Aeon's End, and I love that there's a little mini campaign with it. I am excited to play another one. Let me know if you'd like to see another one. We can do level 2. I'd like to do a full expedition, but I'm curious on what you guys think. Let me know. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you at the next stop.